Hey YouTube, today I'm going to show you how to make a pan-seared chicken breast. It's going to knock your socks off because it's so easy. Alright, so recently, well first of all I apologize for my voice. I know I don't sound like myself, so I'm sorry. But recently, in the past few months, I've had the older kids occasionally take turns cooking dinner. Now, I've raised them to cook, from the time they were old enough to reach the counters, and so they already have some skills. But I've realized that there are some gaps in the education of a couple of them here and there. And I had to go back and teach how do you do certain things, including how to correctly pan-sear protein, such as a chicken breast. Now, the wonderful thing about this particular technique is that once you have it down, you can use this on pork chops or a piece of fish or a steak, and it works across the board. I'm just using chicken breasts because they're inexpensive and super easy to just throw in a pan. So the first thing we're going to do is talk about our skillet. This one is a cast iron skillet. This one actually belonged to my grandmother. I've had it for years. It's probably my favorite thing. I use this most of the time. The reason I don't is because anything bigger than this one gets really hard to handle. I don't have very big hands. They get ridiculously heavy when they get much larger than that. And because I have a big family, I would be hauling giant slabs of cast iron all over the place unless I wanted to use, multiple pans, which I don't. So I do have a stainless steel skillet. It's a 12-inch. It's bigger, and it works just as well. There's very little difference there. The one thing you don't want to use to get a nice crust on something like this is anything that's non-stick. You don't want that slick surface. The non-stick coating is great. Your food won't stick, but you won't get the crust on it that you're after, and you won't have those beautiful brown crispy bits in the bottom afterwards, which you want to keep to make a sauce with. So the first thing we do, turn on our heat. Now, chicken cooks pretty quickly. We're going to put this over medium heat. And this is one of those things where it's more a technique than a recipe. You want to experiment with your stove and your settings, okay? But medium is never a bad idea. And we're going to add 1, 2, maybe 2.5 to 3 tablespoons of olive oil. That's my preference. You can use vegetable oil as well if you'd like. And then while we're talking about our chicken, we're just going to let this sit over here and preheat. It's really important you preheat the skillet and the oil. Okay. Most of the time, I end up purchasing chicken at the warehouse clubs. I get large batches, break down the package. I use it, well, we have a big family, so we use it pretty quickly, but I can freeze what I don't need. This one I picked up at the grocery store, and I wanted to show you something which I found to be interesting, and this is something to keep in mind. See how much thicker this one is than this one? And they came out of the same package. A lot of times the chicken from the warehouse clubs is bigger. The breasts are just huge. Problem with that, takes too long to cook. It tends to burn on the outside before it cooks all the way through. And portion control. Each kid would come and grab a chicken breast and not be able to finish it and throw it anyway. We don't do that. So there's a couple things to do. A lot of people get hung up on how much time it takes to cook something. You don't know. Depends on the temperature of the chicken breast, it depends on how thick it is, and it depends on the temperature of your skillet. So I give approximations, and I tell you to use an internal thermometer. You want to hit 165 degrees. One of the problems here, though, is that this one's going to take longer to cook than this one. A couple of ways you can deal with that. My favorite method, and one I use probably most often, because you can also really save yourself some headache with portion control. This guy is going to go over here to get pounded. This one we're going to have this way. And I've got an article I already wrote on how to do this. See, these two are much closer to the same thickness as is that one. That one needs a little bit of work just to be everybody on the same size, so it's gonna get loud, sorry. That's it. You don't have to go crazy with it. So I'm gonna set these 3 aside, and I'll come back and we're gonna work with these 3, okay? I'll be right back.
Go.
Okay. Now, you can certainly leave the chicken breast the way it was. That's fine, no problem. Same thing works. The time frame I would give you there is 8 to 10 minutes. 8 minutes minimum on the first side, and 8 to 10 on the second side. And if it's real large, go up to 12 minutes on the first side and 10 minutes on the second side. These are going to cook much more quickly than that. And this is much closer to a good portion size, especially for younger people. We tend to eat less meat and more veggies. All right, number 2, you have to season correctly. And you see on TV, you'll see people that are holding their hands way up here and sprinkling salt. It looks showy and it looks like it's fun, but it actually serves a purpose. The higher you get above the food, the more easy it is to evenly distribute the seasoning. And Ricky, can you see how closely that is? This is kosher salt. If you use table sauce, you want much less, but if you use kosher salt, this is correct. You want it to snow on your food, not a blizzard. You want it to snow on your food. Then one of the easiest ways to get something absolutely delicious with very little effort is garlic powder. That's not garlic salt, it's garlic powder. And black pepper. Love black pepper, use it all the time. Fun thing here, you can use whatever you feel like using. There's lots, we don't use many pre-made seasoning blends, but if you're a new cook or if you're short on time, there are Cajun seasonings, there are taco seasonings, fajita seasonings. All of those things work well here. Lemon pepper, that's fine. If you want to use that, if that's something you like. And that's a way to take something that can get pretty plain and repetitive, like, you know, chicken breast every night. That's a nice way to mix up some different flavors if you'd like. Okay, now it's time to check our oil, and I can already tell you it's ready. Ricky, I don't know how close you can get to the pan. This is something that's hard to capture, but you want your oil. Do you see where it shimmers? Is that showing up? There, yeah, it did. See how it shimmers like that? Where it ripples. That's how you know that the oil is hot enough. Other way you know it's hot enough is you get a sizzle. Now, if it's not much sizzle, your oil's not hot enough. If it really just goes nuts and it's popping like crazy, it's too hot, right? This is the right amount of sizzle, because this is what's going to give us that nice golden exterior, and it's going to get enough heat transferred to the interior of the chicken breast that it's going to cook all the way through. All right, so on this one, because I cut them, I'd say we're looking at about 6 minutes for the first side. So we're just going to sit here and listen to the sizzle, and we'll be back in just a minute. Okay, we're back just a little bit early because I wanted to show you something real quick while I had the chance. Don't move or flip them, and you don't want to overcrowd the pan. If they're close together, the food actually steams and it'll get cooked, but you won't have a nice exterior. Now, I was taking a peek a minute ago just to see where we are. You see how this one wants to stick right there? That means it's not ready. It means that there hasn't had enough chance for the Maillard reaction to work on the bottom of that piece of chicken. So we're just going to wait. We're going to be patient. We're going to take another couple minutes, and then we'll try to flip them over. But I guarantee you, if your oil is hot enough and your chicken is nicely crusted on the bottom, it's not going to stick. And if it sticks initially, it'll release itself when it's time to turn. I forgot to look at the clock to tell you exactly how many minutes, but I can guarantee you it was right at the 6 minute mark. I did peek at the bottom just a minute ago. And I can't use my tongue. You really don't want to move them. That's nice. I'm actually going to turn it down just a touch. Just a little bit. This is exactly what you're looking for. You have that nice crispy exterior. And you can tell a difference. Once you get used to doing this, you can tell a difference in how the piece of chicken actually changes shape a little bit. The moisture inside all rushes to the surface as it cooks, and it will change shape slightly. But it's perfect on the exterior of the first side now. It's just a matter of probably 4 minutes and a little bit of patience until it's done on the second side. All right, it's talking to me, telling me it's ready. And yes, it is. All right, so it was right at 4 minutes. and it's ready to come out. I'm going to set this to the side because I'm going to make a little pan sauce real quick. But that is exactly what you're after. You want this crispy exterior, that nice golden color. And if you don't want to cut the breast or pound it any like I did these, don't worry about it. You just need a little bit longer in the pan and it'll be cooked through. If you use the whole chicken breast without cutting it or trimming it like I did, then you can use an internal thermometer to make sure you hit 165 degrees on the inside. But the thickness, I'm just getting rid of some of the excess oil. The thickness of the chicken breast is what determines cooking time, not anything else. That's just what it is. A little bit of temperature. How cold it is when you take it out of the refrigerator, how cold it is in your kitchen, all those things. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you do a perfect pan-seared chicken breast.